Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada. Nitai Gora Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gora Hari Bo, Nitai Gora Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gora Hari Bo. Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parvajikacharya Satarashita Shri Srimati His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parvajikacharya Satarashita Shri Srimati His Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Grantaraj Shrimadbhagavatam Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It's missed very much everyone's association. Been absent for quite some time, so happy to be back. Hoping to be able to say a few words today to help understand this beautiful knowledge that has been given through Guru Parampara and by our dear Srila Prabhupada. And thank you for allowing me this opportunity to share. Please forgive me if I misstate anything. So we'll start with the prayer first. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayan Namaskritya.
Narayana Namaskritya.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Tito Jayo Devye.
Tato Jayam Vireye.
Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu.
Nashtaprayeshu Vabhadreshu.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke.
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke.
Bhaktir Bhavati Neshtaki.
Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki.
Hare Krishna. So we're reading from Shrimadbhagavatam, first canto. We are now in chapter 6, which I left a while ago. And we are reading verse 5 today. I'm finally using my glasses. Okay, so Canto 1, Chapter 6, Conversations between Narada and Vyasadeva, and text number 5. Narada Uvacha
Narada Uvacha.
Bhikshuvir Vipravasite
Vishubhir Vipravasite.
Vijnana Dristribhi Mama
Vijnana Deshidhimama.
Vartamano Vayasyadye
Vartamano Vayasyadye.
Tata Etad Akarsanam
Tata Etad Akarsanam.
Narada Uvacha
Narada Uvacha.
Bhikshuvir Vipravasite
Vikshuvir Vipravasite.
Vijnana Dristribhir Mama
Vijnana Deshidhimir Mama.
Vartamano Vyas Adye
Vartamano Vayasyadye.
Tata Etad Akarasam
Tata Etad Akarasam.
Narada Uvacha
Narada Uvacha.
Bhikshuvir Vipravasite
Vikshuvir Vipravasite.
Vijnana Dristribhir Mama
Vijnana Drishtibhir Mama.
Vartamano Vyas Adye
Vartamano Vayasyadye.
Tata Etad Akarasam.
Tata Etad Akarasam.
So we'll do the word for, or anyone would like to repeat, please?
Narada Uvacha.
Narada Uvacha.
Bhikshuvir Vipravasite.
Vikshuvir Vipravasite.
Vijnana Deshidhimir Mama.
विज्ञानादृष्टिभिर्मम
वर्तमानो वयस्याध्ये
वर्तमानो वयस्याद्ये
तत एतदकारसम्
तत एतदकारसम् नारद उवाच
नारदोवाच
भिक्षुभिर्विप्रवासिते
भिक्षुभिर्विप्रवासिते
विज्ञानादृष्टिभिर्मम
विज्ञानादृष्टिभिर्मम
वर्तमानो वयस्याद्ये
वर्तमानो वयस्याध्ये
तत एतदकारसम्
तथा एतदकारसम्. Word for word. Narada Uvacha.
नारद उवाच
Shri Narada said,
श्री नारद से
Bhikshuvi,
भिक्षुभि
by the great sages,
by the great sages
Vipravasite,
विप्रवासिते
having departed for other places,
having departed for other places
Vijnana,
विज्ञान
scientific spiritual knowledge,
scientific spiritual knowledge
Adrishtabi,
अदृष्टभिः
those who imparted it unto me,
those who imparted unto me
Mama,
mama
mine,
mine
Vartamana,
vartamana
present,
present
Vayase Adye,
vayasyate
before this life,
for this life
Tata,
tata
thereafter,
thereafter
Etat,
etat
this much,
this much
Akarasam,
akarasam
performed.
perform.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Shri Narada said, the great sages who had imparted scientific knowledge of transcendence to me departed for other places, and I had to pass my life in this way. Please repeat. Shri Narada said,
श्री नारद से
the great sages
the great sages
who had imparted
who had imparted
scientific knowledge
scientific knowledge
of transcendence to me
of transcendence to me
departed for other places,
departed for other places
and I had to pass
and I had to pass
my life this way.
my life in this way.
Purport. In his previous life, when Naraji was impregnated with spiritual knowledge by the grace of great sages, there was a tangible change in his life, although he was only a boy of 5 years. That is an important symptom visible after initiation by the bona fide spiritual master. Actual association of devotees brings about a quick change in life for spiritual realization. How it is acted upon the previous life of Sri Narad Muni is described by and by in this chapter. Once again, the translation. Sri Narada said, the great sages who had imparted scientific knowledge of transcendence to me departed for other places, and I had to pass my life in this way. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuramilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeyam Shri Guru Shri Yukta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Setu Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanustite Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvevacha Patitana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, this purport, this verse actually is very, very essential to our essential to our lives. So, a few days back, my Prabhu had given class, and we talked some of the qualities of devotional service as well as qualities of Guru. And then yesterday, Ekanta Prabhu went over time, right? Like how it destroys all things, and he also went over how the spiritual consciousness, things like that. So, yes. How time can destroy everything, but the memory, right? This transcendental knowledge that we received, it's not affected by time. So in this particular purport, another very important concept comes up. So in this particular purport, and actually it is almost like a vital lifeline for all of us in this material world, and that is sadhu sangha. Sadhu sangha. So sadhu sangha translates to association with or fellowship with a saintly or spiritually advanced individual. Okay? So association or fellowship with a saintly or spiritually advanced individual. It is a crucial concept in the development of our bhakti and our spiritual progress. So emphasizing the importance of learning from and being guided by such individuals. It is to actively, so it's active again, how we talked about before with devotional service. This is actively seeking and engaging with individuals who are considered pure and spiritually evolved. So association means, and this is really actually quite important, the association that we take is the inspiration that we're taking from one another. Right? So when we are with advanced individuals, spiritually advanced individuals, when we take their association, we're taking inspiration from them. Okay? So this is sadhu sangha, the definition. But we've also heard the verse, sadhu sangha, sarva shastrikaya, lava matra sadhu sangha, sarva siddhihaya. It comes in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So this translates as, the verdict of all revealed scriptures is that even by a moment's association with a pure devotee, one can attain all success. So these statements that are being made by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we'll see some other statements and prayers that I want to go over today. These are actually extremely, if we take the realization from it, we won't let a moment go without trying to find this association. Lava matra. This is 1/11 of a second. So we know how fast seconds go by in our lives, right? It's just so quick. So even 1/11 of a second of association of a pure devotee, right? How that can change our lives. Fraction of a second can change our lives. So let's see how this progresses, and we can see it in the life of Narad Muni. So from Narad Muni, who's actually one of our acharyas in the disciplic succession, right? He had a moment's association. I mean, he was very fortunate. He had 4 months of association during the season, rainy season. And he also was able to take the remnants of these great divine personalities, right? These sadhus. And being in association with these bona fide devotees, his life completely changed. And we'll see his story. Like, as we go through this chapter now, we will see more and more of his story come about. And those changes are not like bodily changes. These are changes from within. And in this particular purport, Srila Prabhupada uses a very powerful word. I mean, all of Srila Prabhupada's purports are powerful, but in here he uses the word impregnate. So it says, in his previous life, when Naraji was impregnated with spiritual knowledge by the grace of the sages. So this particular word, right, impregnate, in one sense, it means yes, like when a woman becomes pregnant and is with child, or when a female becomes pregnant and is with child. But it also means to soak or saturate something with a substance. So, like a sponge, you soak it with water, like, right? Like it becomes fully encapsulated with that. So, just like when a woman is pregnant or impregnated, right? Her personality completely changes when she's with child. It completely changes her and stuff. So she's no longer the same person as she used to be before. And so similarly, when a person becomes impregnated with this divine knowledge, through this process of our Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, right? We have a wonderful Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition of initiation from a bona fide spiritual master. When this happens, he becomes impregnated with this spiritual knowledge, this spiritual realization, right? During this process, the seed is planted within, and this divine knowledge will forever change this person. And when you have this impregnation during this initiation process, these tangible things will start changing within one's lives. I don't know how many of you have experienced this or will be experiencing, or even just by this moment association with the devotee. Just look at your own lives, how much has changed, right? So it is a very tangible change that happens. It is actually a very dramatic change that a person can receive this spiritual realization from the spiritual master, right? And when we completely surrender and give, and he gives you this understanding, we basically change the stage of our lives. So initially, you know, the stage of life that we were living, or at least I was living, was very animalistic. I was living a very animalistic life. And through this process of association, the sadhu sangha, this association with a spiritual master, we actually change from being animalistic into becoming a human being, right? Because if you look at the world today, everyone is eating nicely, they're sleeping nicely, mating nicely, defending nicely. Now we're going to build a golden dome, right? To defend ourselves. You know, you have so much is out there, right? So everyone is living, and animals live the same exact way. So everyone is living very wonderful animalistic lives. But when do we become a human being, right? When this transformation, this impregnation of spiritual knowledge comes within us, we actually become human beings. And what is this human being, right? Human being, it's the whole purpose of human being is to serve Krishna, right? And unless we are impregnated with the spiritual knowledge, how are we going to know what is the purpose of our life? So, this is what happens, because we have free will. We have this we have this independence. We have all this free will, right? And stuff. So we can continue in animalistic ways, or if we use our intelligence and we seek out, actively seek out, if we get the association, if we take inspiration, if all this happens, and we use our spiritual intelligence, then we can actually start learning how to serve Krishna, right? So this is, again, the sadhu sangha is so vital in our lives. Everyone should have an opportunity to have sadhu sangha in their lives, this association of pure devotees. Another point that's made in this particular purport is the mercy. We see that Srila Prabhupada writes, the grace of the great sages. There was a tangible change in his life. So, this mercy, this grace that we receive from great sages, great mentors, great teachers that we have in our lives, right? That would be a person like this great sage is a person who follows the disciplic succession, right? This Guru Parampara. Because many of us may be seeking knowledge, right? But who is a guru? Who do we learn from? Who is bona fide? How do we know these things, right? So many people are always seeking these questions or answers to these questions. And what so wonderfully it is given in our Shastras, but someone who follows these Shastric injunctions, what's given to us in our Shastras, right? If they follow that correctly, if they're following regulative principles, and they're 100% following and serving Sri Krishna, following God, 24 hours a day, they're fully engaged. This is a guru, right? They are learned in the scriptures. They are very broad-minded in the fact that they can impart this philosophy to the masses, right? And be able to give it to others and stuff. This is a spiritual teacher, right? This is who we are seeking for and stuff. Because by the moment's association of this person, what can happen? We can tangibly change our lives, right? For the better. From animalistic into becoming a human being. So, what is also very beautiful that Srila Prabhupada has given us is these prayers. And there are multiple prayers in which there's a glorification of the spiritual master. One of them that we chant, and we just chanted as well too, Oma Gyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shlakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. We chant this anytime before we read any spiritual text, before we start something as part of our Mangalacharan, right? And why is this? Because it translates. Anyone knows the translation?
Like
parts of it?
Deepest ignorance, spiritual master is the torch bearer,
Yes.
showing us the mission.
Yes, very good. So it is, I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. This is what this means. And why do we read this? Why do we chant this? Because it's every time we say this, it's a realization that I was born in this darkest of ignorance. We don't always understand that we're in ignorance, right? Ignorance is bliss. Many times we're thinking we're blissful and stuff. But we are actually born in this very dark ignorance. And who, and only who is able to take us out of this ignorance is the spiritual master. Because without spiritual knowledge, we will continue our animalistic ways, right? So, the spiritual master, this moment's association with them, can open our eyes. And this is the tangible change, right? With this spiritual knowledge. And by us offering respectful obeisances. What is this respectful obeisances all the time, right? It's the process of surrendering to the spiritual master. When we offer our respectful obeisances, time and time again we'll hear this. We also chant many prayers, and actually, as we start to chant these prayers, Srila Prabhupada painstakingly, and all of our acharyas, they translated all of these into English, at least so that I can understand, right? So we should start learning and understanding what these prayers are meaning. What are we singing? Every morning, what do we sing? What is the first thing we do in the morning? Yes. Samsara Dava, right? We sing Samsara Dava, Nadali Loka. We sing that whole bhajan, right? Every temple, every morning, every day, same time, right? Like we sing this bhajan. Why? Srila Prabhupada established this because the first thing we do in the morning is we glorify the spiritual master. This whole bhajan is a glorification of the spiritual master. It is extremely important that we learn this particular bhajan and we understand what it means. Actually, I still remember Mother Krishna Prabhu during one of the Vyas Puja offerings, he gave a wonderful explanation of this bhajan and how his spiritual master showed him each one of these things and how he paid respects to his spiritual master through each one of these shlokas. So With interest of time, I wasn't going to go through the whole translation of the bhajan, but what I wanted to do is actually, Srila Prabhupada gave a beautiful purport to this bhajan. You guys know what I'm talking about, Samsara Dava Nadalila Loka. I'm sure, I'm praying everyone's familiar with it and stuff. So Srila Prabhupada gave a purport to this particular bhajan that I actually would like to read because it's very powerful. At least I feel like it's very powerful. He spoke this on January 2nd in 1969 in Los Angeles. It goes, this song is offering obeisances, particularly to the spiritual master, and the symptoms of the spiritual master are described in this prayer. The spiritual master has two kinds of symptoms in his activities. One kind is called constant, and the other is called temporary. So the first verse says that the constant symptom of the spiritual master is that he can deliver his disciples from the blazing fire of this material existence. We are all burning. Whether we know it or not, we are all burning in this day-to-day grind. It's just, we don't feel the heat sometimes, but we are all burning in this fire of material existence. So what happens? That is the eternal qualification of a spiritual master. Trayana means to deliverance, and Karuna means compassion. Very mercifully. So the spiritual master comes to the deliverance of the fallen soul out of his causeless mercy. Nobody has any business for suffering of others. The best example is Lord Jesus Christ, that he suffers for others. And it is the principle in the Bible that he accepts all the sins of others. This is a sign of a spiritual master, that he voluntarily accepts the sinful activities of others and delivers them. That is the qualification of a spiritual master. How is it? Just like Gana Ganatvam. Gana Ganatvam means dense cloud in the sky. The first example has been said that this material existence is like a forest blazing fire. Now, to extinguish this forest blazing fire, there's no use of sending a fire brigade, right? We see many forest fires that are happening physically in this world, right? And we send firefighters into the flames, we send helicopters, planes, they're pouring water from the sky, but how much water or how much fire retardant does a plane deposit compared to a cloud? So let's see. Now, to extinguish the forest fire, there's no use sending a fire brigade. The fire brigade cannot approach the forest fire. Neither any man can go there to extinguish the fire. One has to depend completely on the mercy of nature. That means one has to completely depend on the cloud in the sky. Otherwise, there is no question of pouring water on that blazing fire. So the example is very appropriate. A man-made engine or fire brigade is unable to extinguish the forest blazing fire. Similarly, the material essential blazing fire cannot be extinguished by any man-made method. We are not capable of escaping this material world on our own. We're not capable. We have to surrender and depend completely on this cloud, right? That will pour down this transcendental knowledge. And who is this cloud? Let's continue. They're planning to be very comfortable in this material existence, but they are still more being confused and led to failure. That peace movement, the United Nations movement, everything is failure. Why? These miseries of this material existence cannot be stopped by any material means. One has to take shelter of a spiritual means. Just like the blazing fire in the forest has to wait for the cloud in the sky, similarly, one has to wait for the merciful cloud as the spiritual master. That is described. Trayana karunya gana ganatvam, prapasya kalyana gunaravasya. So, the spiritual master is not self-made. It is not that if anyone comes before you, and bluffs you that I have attained spiritual perfection and I have realized something by some method, no. So Srila Prabhupada also not only in order for us to be removed from this blazing fire, we have to wait for the spiritual master or get the association, but also not anyone can be a spiritual master, right? So this is also very important because in now day and time, anyone can come and say, oh, I'm a spiritual master, or, proclaim certain things. So the spiritual master, the bona fide spiritual, means he has to receive power from the authority. Otherwise, it is useless. No, it is not that one can become a spiritual master overnight. He has to take the power from his spiritual master. So this is also very important. And this is the establishment of our Guru and Parampara, this disciplic succession that we have, right? So Srila Prabhupada is directly talking about that now. He has to take power from his spiritual master. Therefore, it is called prapasya. Prapasya means one who has gotten merciful blessings of the spiritual master. So we should always remember that the spiritual master is in the disciplic succession. The original spiritual master is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. He blessed his next disciple, just like Brahma. Brahma blessed his next disciple, just like Narad. And Narad blessed his next disciple, just like Vyasa. So Vyasa blesses his next disciple, Madhva Acharya. So like this, similarly, the blessing is coming, okay? Just like a royal succession, the throne is inherited by this disciplic or hereditary succession. Similarly, the power from the spiritual personality, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has to be received. So not anyone can be like, oh, I'm going to become a spiritual master today. It's not like that, right? It has to come down. It has to be passed on. It has to be received, right? In order for someone to become a spiritual master. And that is the individual who has received the mercy, received the blessing, and who has received it passed down from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the individual we would want to take sadhu sangha or association with. Because by taking their association, even for how long? 1/11 of a second, right? We can make tangible changes in our lives and become a human being. So that is the progression. So nobody can preach, nobody can become a spiritual master without obtaining the power from the right source. Therefore, every word, it is stated here, prapasya. Prapasya means one who has obtained. Prapasya kalyana. What he has obtained, kalyana. Kalyana means auspiciousness. He has received something which is auspicious for all humankind. So this is not ordinary auspiciousness, right? This is auspiciousness which is for all humans, all of humankind, all living entities. Prapasya kalyana gunaravasya. Here is another example of gunarnava. Arnava means ocean, and guna means spiritual qualities. Just like the same example is going on. It is very nice poetry. There is some rhetoric and metaphor. The example is set. Blazing fire, and it is to be extinguished with a cloud. And where from the cloud comes, similarly, where from the spiritual master receives his mercy, the cloud receives its potency from the ocean. Right? So how was a cloud made? We all went through science class, right? From the ocean. Therefore, the spiritual master, which is equated to the cloud, also receives his power from the ocean of spiritual quality, right? So from this, and that is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So who is this spiritual ocean? The Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that is where the spiritual master receives all that mercy. So prapatasya kalyana gunaravasya. Such a kind of spiritual master, one has to accept. This is the quality of the spiritual master that we have to accept. One who is following the succession, right? Not just any person who decides that they want to be guru tomorrow. And what do we do after every line of that bhajan? Vande Guru Shri Charanarabinda. And one has to offer his respectful obeisances to such an authorized spiritual master. The importance of paying obeisances. We come into the temple room, we pay obeisances to Srila Prabhupada, Gaur Nitai, Radha Kunj Bihari, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra, Srinathji Bhagwan, right? It is our moment of surrender. Every time we pay obeisances, the sins of our lives are being washed away. Every time we pay obeisances, we are surrendering further and further. Every time we pay obeisances, we're building humility in our lives. Do we go and pay obeisances to random people on the street? Not so much, but like everyone, right? This obeisances is so powerful when we start surrendering to a spiritual master. So in this way, if you have not read the translation of this bhajan, Samsara, please do. Please do. Extremely powerful, and it helps us understand who this spiritual master is. Who is it that we're supposed to learn from, right? So Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu, all of these things, as we progress in our spiritual life, all of these things are the same. One message from all three of them, right? This is how we know that things are bona fide. We also sing another very important bhajan, the Guru Vandana bhajan, right? We just sang it before class. And every morning we read the translation of this as well, too. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service. So in this statement, only is used, black and white. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way in which we can obtain pure devotional service. This association of a spiritual master is important. Why? Because he is imparting spiritual knowledge which will lead us to devotional service. And this is the only way, right? By devotional service. What are we practicing? What is bhakti? It is devotional service, right? And who is giving it to us? The spiritual master. So, I bow to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, again, the grace, the mercy, right? Without the mercy of the spiritual master, how are we going to survive? How are we breathing? At least I don't feel like I could breathe without it. That is, by his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. How do we know Krishna? It is only through the sadhu sangha. Some association we had with a devotee, a spiritual master, someone who has taught us the name Krishna, right? Has spoken to us or given us this something to know that who Krishna is. So it is only by their mercy, by their grace. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. This is the transformation. This is the tangible effect that we will all feel as we start surrendering to the spiritual master. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy. We just read again in Samsara Dava. He is the ocean of mercy. The friend of the poor, the Lord and master of the devotees. O master, be merciful unto me. So, we hear this, we read it, we recite it, but do we live it, right? This is what we have to, and in the association, we begin to live this, right? Because when we associate with like-minded people, we start doing, right? Like, why are we wearing tilak? Why are we carrying a bead bag around, right? We see the pleasure from each other, right? In this process of Krishna consciousness. And so that's why this association helps us, uplifts us from all of this forest fire. This is a transcendental process, because again, we cannot escape from this material fire on our own. We have no ability and stuff. But through this divine association, we are able to uplift ourselves from this forest fire. And the spiritual master, at least I know from memories of my spiritual master, anytime we meet with him, the very first question we will receive, how is your chanting? First question, no matter what, how is your chanting, right? And this is the love of a spiritual master, right? He cares for our spiritual progress, our spiritual growth. He cares that we start this process of devotional service, right? And it is because by this devotional service is the only way we're going to escape this material life. So, Prahlad Maharaj, he gives in the 7th canto the 9 processes of devotional service. And in that one, which many of you might also be familiar with, you've heard Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Shmaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam. First thing, hearing and chanting, right? About the transcendental holy name, form, qualities, paraphernalia, and pastimes of Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna. This is the first thing in devotional service. And what does the spiritual master do? He reminds us every time, every morning, everywhere, chanting and hearing, chanting and hearing. You guys are all here hearing, right? We finished our chanting, all that kind of stuff. So, and why? Because that constant remembrance. What is the spiritual master? He is constantly remembering 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, never stops, right? Even in his sleep, he never stops thinking of Krishna, right? This is remembrance. This is Vishnu Shmarana. I don't have it. I forget Krishna all the time, right? And stuff. But by this process, by surrendering to the spiritual master, one day I know I will be able to remember Krishna 24 hours, 365 days a year. So this is what is tangible for us through this process of surrendering to Krishna, to the spiritual master. Serving the lotus feet, offering respectful worship, right? Offering prayers to the Lord, becoming a servant, becoming the Lord's best friend, right? Who's more of a well-wisher than the Lord himself, the spiritual master, right? There are ever well-wishers. Srila Prabhupada used to sign, "You're ever well-wisher." What does that mean, right? He only wants the best for you. Who can write that, right? Some people write sincerely, but that's not ever well-wisher. So, we see that the spiritual master is constantly trying to engage us in these activities. He himself is always engaged, constantly engaged, and then also engaging us. And this purport also from Prahlad Maharaj describes a sannyasi, right? One who carries a danda, a spiritual master who carries a danda. There's actually 3 sticks within that danda for body, mind, and words. They're constantly engaged using their body, mind, and words in the service of Krishna. That is a sannyasi, right? So these are some of the prayers. I know my Prabhu also went over Anya Vilasita Sunyam, the one we read in Nectar of Devotion, which is describes what bhakti is, the definition of bhakti. So like this, excuse me, the spiritual master is the source. He is the ability for us to come out of this samsara, right? This forest fire. And when we start associating with devotees, when we start associating with those that are spiritually advanced than us, very quickly our lives will change. And you yourselves all have experienced this tangible effect. And anyone who is not associated with a spiritual master, with someone who is spiritually inclined or advanced, please seek them out and do so. Your life will change for the better, I guarantee it. If not, no problem. you can continue your animalistic life. No problem. There's plenty of that to go around. But try it. Just try it. Just try this chanting process. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Just try it and see what happens in your life, right? So, anyone want to be a human being or want to live an animalistic life? So this is the text today, this purport. Very beautiful. Srila Prabhupada is just amazing in how he gives us this knowledge and stuff and impregnates us with this knowledge, right? So that we can feel these tangible changes. And we'll see Narad Muni's life, how amazing experience he had. Even though all the things he went through, how this has tangibly changed his life and so forth. So this is all I had to say today. So please forgive me if I misspoke anything. Thank you so much for your kind attention and patience. And please forgive me if I said anything wrong. Thank you.
Thank you.
If anyone has any questions or comments or experiences, tangible feelings that would like to share, please feel free to at this time.
Ataji, I was curious to know, like, Lavamatra, like 1/11th of second, how that 1/11th of second is very important association. Because, see, like, if there is, if the time is like seconds or minutes, it's they can convey some messages or some. In a fraction of seconds, like how that happens, Mataji.
It's that is the power of spiritual transcendence, right, and stuff. There are stories of people who have just seen a sadhu walk in the door, and that's it, right? That's it. Surrendered, right? So everyone has an individual journey. You know, some people it takes many years to finally be able to surrender and so forth. Some people by an instant are able to. So it is spiritual power is something that to put it into words, even trying to put it into words, it's so difficult, but it can happen. It can happen. And remember also, like I always feel, somewhere, in our past lives, we don't know what our past lives were. We don't have that remembrance. But somehow or another, something in our past lives happened in which maybe we did get that 1/11th of a second association of a spiritual master or, someone spiritually advanced. And we may not even know it, and the seed was planted. In our next life, like Narad Muni, the fruitification of that seed starts happening. So we don't know how this happens, but, as devotees go out, that's why Harinams, things like that are so important, because some stranger might be passing, they might get the seed and not even know it, and who knows, in their next life, someone might get a plate of prasadam, not even knowing it's prasadam, but in their next life, when they get that human birth, they start progressing, because bhakti, right, it never diminishes, right? In our bank account, whatever money we have, when we die, it goes away, or someone else takes it, or whatever, and we have to start over in our next life. Bhakti is not like that. Whatever we've done in our devotional life, next birth, whether we go back home, hopefully, or not, whatever birth we get, we start our bhakti at that point on. Exactly. So that moment's association, you never know how it comes, where that seed is planted and stuff, but it definitely, affects a person in their life. So, yeah.
I mean, like, for me to receive the Gita at age 15 in the middle of Alabama, where no one even knew the word Krishna, and I get exposed to it, and it's just like, everyone says you must have done something.
Yeah.
So, and it's just like, but it's true, between you and your problem, my life has completely changed. And this September, the self-discovery will be 3 years since I've been coming.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, it has been.
Yeah.
It's been very amazing. My whole family is almost completely vegetarian now. I've been vegetarian for almost 2 years.
Wow. It's a tangible change, right? This is
It
what we're
works.
saying. Tangible
Yeah.
changes. Yeah. Jai. Very awesome to hear. Very awesome.
And my Maharaj is coming next to the last week in July. He'll be here.
Yay!
Yes. I'm so excited.
Very nice.
More association with him, more
More association. And fortunately for us, summer, unfortunately, winter, we don't get as much association because a lot of Maharajas don't travel during the cold season here and stuff. But now that the summer is coming, we'll have an opportunity to meet with many wonderful, highly elevated devotees. So we should try to take their association, right? Because we never know, what kind of
And that's like
knowledge they could impart on us.
It's like associating with Shrimadbhagavatam. We need to do that while we can because he's not getting any younger.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and there's a lot of wisdom right there.
yeah,
And that kind of association, I mean, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
From spiritually elevated people. That's Shrimadbhagavatam.
yeah,
Doesn't get much more elevated than that.
yeah. Oh, definitely. So, okay. I don't know how many people are attending. This weekend is the Sadhu Sangha Festival, actually, in Florida. So, I think almost 4,000 plus devotees will be there and stuff. So, it is another opportunity to definitely take association, take that inspiration. I believe it will be online too, so on YouTube. So if anyone is not able to go, they can at least take the association that way as well.
Sweet.
So, but yeah, thank you so much for your association. I'm very grateful. Keeps me in Krishna consciousness. So thank you so much. Any other questions, thoughts, comments? Thank you again. And we'll continue tomorrow with verse 6. Hare Krishna. Grantaraj Shrimadbhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vishnu ki jai. Hare Krishna.